you located?
Cardiff in Wales.
Oh, excellent.
U-
Okay, well,
UK.
I'm
UK.
yeah, okay, cool. Well, I'm in the middle of America. I'm in Kansas City. It's great to meet you.
And lovely to meet you as well. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, you bet. So let's get into your story. And before we do, I want to know, 4 years ago, we were trying to figure this pandemic out, and it was very specific on the world of musicians. How did you survive that time period, and how did it change the way that you make music or affect this album? How did it kind of translate?
I actually had quite a nice pandemic. I shouldn't say that really, but I live amongst the forests and the trees in very peaceful Wales. So we could go out walking every day. So spiritually, I felt quite good. We were homeschooling my little boy. So I would come in my office instead of homeschooling. I'd leave that to my husband to do. And so I'd be in here a lot. So it just meant I could write. I turned up every day and just wrote and played and practiced and actually put a lot of hours into writing and being on Zoom calls and teaching online. So yeah, my music actually flourished in the pandemic, and I made lots of met lots of people and I got onto socials, which I wasn't really on before. So the pandemic, right at the beginning, I got signed to Jazzman Records. That was right at the start, and that's where everything kind of snowballed from in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a level of buyer's remorse. I think people that say they had a good pandemic or things worked out, they feel a little weird about it, but I hear that all the time. I hear silver
Good.
linings. Yeah.
Well, yeah, my husband, he used to work in Ford Motor engine plant,
Yeah.
and it closed just at the start of the pandemic. He then did our garden in the pandemic, and now is a gardener.
Wow.
I'm much happier. Landscape gardener, builds summer houses. It's probably prolonged his life uh,
Yeah.
because of that reason. So, and we had loads of time with our son. So, I think all in all, it was a really, and also I was teaching right at the beginning of the pandemic every week to a group of people, teaching them jazz harp. And I wrote a new piece every week for them. So, at the end of that, I had a new book. And then I went to New Zealand last year and met loads of these people who I've taught because of teaching them online of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's
So
loads of positive things.
totally, I totally agree. So talk to me a little bit about the title of your brand new album. How did you come up with this? How has it influenced the way the music flows?
Well, there was a lady in New Zealand. I have quite a strange link with New Zealand. I had a lovely therapist. Everyone's got a therapist, but a lady I speak to in New Zealand. So I have a big link to New Zealand. And when I was there, I met a lady called Carolyn Mills, and she's a harpist in one of the orchestras. And she said, "Do you mind if I give you a little kind of slideshow on a project I've been doing?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, why not?" And she showed me this slideshow of liminality. And it was very interesting because the harp in orchestras and classical settings is always presented at points of liminality, as in when someone wakes or when someone goes to sleep or when someone's about to die. The harp, you hear it, it's this kind of ethereal sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's liminality?" She said, "Well, it's that point between two places, between waking and sleeping, living and dying, being single, being married, that holding place." And I was just intrigued how the harp is so ethereal and magical at those points. And they're not places we're scared of. They're places we all go to every day, whether we wake up or go to sleep. They're kind of quite magical places. And I really was intrigued how the harp kind of is integrated into this special place, which we don't
Yeah.
really know what it is, but we all go there.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought it was a really beautiful kind of outlook on life, music, our being, and how the harp for me is completely integrated into all that.
So talk to me a little bit about the album and what you're hoping the listener gets from this album.
Ah, th- I absolutely love this album just because I don't know, I like listening to it as well because it calms me. It's quite strange. I'll put it on in the car and it has a kind of a very zen feeling. And I know the harp over time has been researched a lot, and they use it in the States for post operations. I've used it a lot to work with Alzheimer's patients here, and you can just see it just slows the heart rate down. It just relaxes you. So I wanted it to be that, and I wanted it to be rhythmical. And I just remember recording it, having such a nice time. And it just felt very special. And it's nice to have Chip on it. We had a new producer. It was kind of new, it was fresh. Um, yeah, it was special for so many reasons, but also that realization of what the harp is in my life as well.
Yeah.
And since the pandemic, I've realized how special it is. I always used to think of it as something I'd go to, I'd teach on. But I didn't actually realize how much of a vessel of a voice it is, which over the last 4 years, I'm like, my gosh, yes, this is how I speak. And the more I teach people about jazz and improvising, I mean, there's never an end point with improvising. We're always on a journey.
Yeah.
But the more I realize it's how we talk, our instruments are how we talk. And I think it's just an album of finding my voice.
So, as you had mentioned before, there is an elegance and a magic that goes into the harp.
Yeah.
It's this iconic symbol that's been around since the Renaissance era. Just, we always see it as something that's seminal, but especially in jazz, you don't think about it as much as being a central part of what it does. So, I'm curious, how did you pick this instrument or did this instrument pick you?
Oh, now that's a good question, right? So, I mean, the harp in history goes back to sort of the ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamia. It's been around a long, long time. There's hieroglyphics with harps on and everything. So it's always been in the world that we know. And you've got to think, why is that, isn't it? It's something very special about the overtones or the notes it makes. But when I was 6 years old, I was watching Harpo Marx on the telly. And also in Wales, it's our national instrument. So it's everywhere. So we have festivals and you watch the telly and there's always a harp. If you go to a wedding, there's always a harp. So harp is just really, they teach it in our schools as well, in the Welsh speaking schools. But I very clearly at 6 years old remember watching Harpo Marx, black and white film, playing this harp, having a whale of a time and making the most gorgeous sound, which was just like, I've got to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. And I came home from brownies when I was 6, and there was a little harp waiting for me. And that's all I've ever done. I can't imagine doing anything else.
So who have been influences yeah, first and foremost, who have been influences on the instrument for you?
Ah, well, you were asking me as well about jazz harp, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how the harp fits into jazz.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that many people. It does go back, Harper Marx plays some jazzy style and things. There are a few harpists along the way, some boogie woogie harpists, but not many, and not really until Dorothy Ashby and Alice Coltrane. But I didn't come to them until I'd gone back to college to do a master's. When I was 37, I had a bit of a midlife crisis. And my degree was classical music. So I had a very strict upbringing on many hours a day practice, no creativity, just play what's on the page, paper trained. And then when I was 37, I had a bit of a crisis and said I need to do jazz because my husband was coming back playing jazz guitar and I didn't know what he was doing and I couldn't join in our jam that was happening every week in our house. So I said, right, okay. So I went back to college and it was there that I discovered Dorothy Ashby, Alice Coltrane. My teacher was Park Stickney. But when I was a little girl as well, there was a woman called Deborah Henson Conant, an American harpist who came
Yeah.
over here. She was a blues harpist. And she gave a workshop. We went to see her in a sort of a dark, dirty jazz bar. I was only about 7, I think it must have been. And she had fishnet tights on, black leather skirt, dreadlocks. My dad thought she was just bee's knees. What's that? And I remember going, oh, that's not the harp as I know it. That's really cool. And she always stuck with me as it doesn't have to be strict and classical. There's something else out. And it was that seed was planted from a very young age.
Yeah.
So going through life, I always did my classical, but I always listened to other things. De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. So what I listened to didn't tie up with what I played at all.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as I've got older, I've come closer and closer to accessing the sounds I want via the jazz language and the influences of like Dorothy and Alice, really.
Yeah. So, how hard was it to get into the
A
world of
nightmare.
jazz? What
Well, I went back to college, and the first week I just cried like a little piggy all the way home. It was awful. It was awful because I come from a world where I'm paper trained, so I'm told everything to play. It's put on my stand, and if it falls off the stand, I stop. And that was it. I did some background music and pop and things, but the notes were, even down to how loud or quiet you play it, the exact time, the speed, everything. Do not divert off that, even what fingers to put on the strings, because this passed down from your teacher's music. So that's how I grew up. And jazz is the opposite. You don't go to a teacher to sound exactly like them. You have a teacher to sort of encourage your creativity. You can kind of steal ideas and things, but the end product must be you being creative in your voice. So when had my music removed, which is what it felt like, surgically removed from me, and my first lesson in jazz was, what can you play with one finger? And I was like, oh my God, I'm used to being able to play classically. And
Yeah.
oh, it was just absolutely hideous. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I sounded awful. So I was taken right back down to the bare bones of um, listening, listening to my harp, listening to the sound I was making. What do I have to say that not copying what someone else has said? What have I got to say? And I'd be like, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it took a long time, and I think it's an eternal journey, isn't it? Which is a really nice thing as well. It's not I've practiced this for 10 hours, therefore voila.
Yeah.
It's forever
Yeah. Yeah.
changing and evolving, which is what a great thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a
So let me
gift.
ask, yeah, it is a gift. So let me ask you this. What do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What motivates you to create? What is that for you?
It's fab. I love my job. I love my job. I love teaching. That's one thing I really enjoy. Just enabling people to make their own sounds. I love playing in a band, that kind of when it starts and you hear a groove and you're contributing to that tapestry. That's a real buzz. I love playing background music for weddings and things. I mean, adding to the atmosphere. And I love writing. I'm making something. I think everybody who makes something understands that, what it's like, what it's like to create an art piece of art or something you've sewn. You like it's you. All the coins you've put in of music listening, um, everything you put in comes out completely unique to you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got classical Debussy going in, I've got Triple Quest going in. So whatever I make is just going to be solely mine, isn't it? So you can't
Yeah.
be judged as much with that. So in the morning I wake up, 8 o'clock, I'm on my harp. I just love sitting there and you play a chord, you go, oh, listen to that. And see an improvement,
Yeah.
put a
Yeah.
metronome on and see, can I learn this by the end of the day?
Yeah.
Job
So
satisfaction galore.
that's it. That's the key to it. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. Why do you love jazz?
Um, uh, well, it's funny. Over time, I think, because I've come from classical into jazz, you see algorithms within people of music. So I think classical musicians who end up in jazz have loved Debussy and Ravel and the really rich harmonies that they bring about. But then I always listen to like hip hop and De La Soul and things. So you add all that together, rich harmonies, great grooves, all of those things, and you kind of end up in this. I mean, jazz is a huge umbrella, right? So
Yeah.
that's the lovely thing, is you're not stuck in one box. It can be any style or fit, from Garaldi to Bill Evans, whatever. It's all relevant, and you can
Yeah.
play in any style you like. So I think it's which thing you like to go and investigate this week,
Yeah.
like a sweetie shop.
Yep. Absolutely. So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see any dream show anywhere, where are you going to go? What would you love to see?
Oh, I'd love to see Ella and Louis.
Yeah.
Ella and Louis together, their albums. I love their albums.
Yeah.
Any Bossa, Jobim, live. Oh gosh, so many. There's so many, isn't there? Where would you
Yeah.
start with that? What a great question.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see Ella on the stage of Apollo during her first The Talent Show. I'd love to catch
Wow.
that. That'd be
Yeah,
crazy, you
yeah.
know?
I mean, I think until you hear her live or scatting live, you know that. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to see that live. Any
Yeah.
any musician's live is a different thing, isn't it? So you
Yeah.
actually see them doing what they do, which you hear on your record player. but like, oh, they
Yeah.
are actually doing that. They are that good.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow, that's a big question. I oh wow. I'm a mum, which I think is should be first and foremost, um, which means I have to care because being a mum has helped me care with my teaching more. I'm a little bit more patient, maybe. So I kind of have more of a feeling for the fragility of life, maybe, or the delicateness of what it means. So I'd like to think that people maybe think I'm a caring person, maybe, and I care about what I produce, and I'm doing it from my heart because I want to maybe think that my music is affecting somebody because I know how much music affects me.
Yeah,
So I know if I'm in a good place or bad place, put on some music and it can change everything, can't it?
yeah,
So I'd like to think that maybe that my music might be doing that somewhere along the line for people, and they can feel that I want to have that effect on their life too. Because music in this house is huge. You know, I know when I had my little boy, you put on your, so it's like piano music, and everything feels calm. Or I go to yoga, the music they play in yoga. When I go to someone's house and there's no music on, I find that so strange.
yeah,
It's empty.
yeah,
Life feels empty without music. So yeah, if someone's got my music on in their house, it's like that's an honor. I
yeah,
kind of feel that they've pressed play.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm humbled by that. I think that's a really important thing to be grateful for. I'm grateful.
yeah. I agree. So if anyone wants to pick up the latest album, see you live, anything else in your world, where's the best place to go?
Well, it's on First Word Records, and so it's on. You can get it on Bandcamp. QDOS is supplying it everywhere around the globe, so I think you can Google it and find it. Well, on my Instagram, you can definitely see all the links for it. It's on Spotify as well, and Apple and Tidal. It's everywhere. It's like a rash.
So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Best of luck
Are
with
we
the album.
finished?
What?
Are we finished?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think I really wanted to
Oh,
kind of get into the album and I wanted to get into the backbone of what you do.
enjoying
And
that.
I think we scratched the surface. I think we got people ready to get the album. So this has been wonderful.
Ah,
Thank you so much.
oh, are you a jazz musician?
No, I just love it from afar. I do all kinds of things. I'm a visual artist. I'm a writer. I have
Is
my
this your
show.
art in the back? Is this
Yeah,
your
that's one of my
Oh,
paintings. Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah,
Wow.
so I figure the one mystery in life that I need to keep intact is music. I mean, I've played the drums, I've kind of messed around with instruments, but I just want to be an observer. I just want to delve into this the way I do it and celebrate it. So yeah.
Well, I think if you're creative, like you're beautiful art, you understand kind of like what goes into making things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how you put yourself into that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And how everything is so important, and you become a little bit of a control freak sometimes,
Right.
isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
no, it has to be that way. It has to be
Uh-huh.
that way.
Yeah.
And you understand when someone's made something, how much effort
Oh yeah.
behind thought process,
Yeah.
obsessiveness
Yeah.
goes into making something, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And that's what I want to celebrate. So it's
Oh,
wonderful. Well, thank you for your story and
thank you.
you bet. And before you